What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today and tomorrow I'm allocating like 2 or 3 days for this Impreza. If you guys have been around for a little while, you'll saw when we started our 2.5 RS, R-STI, 22B, B25, XYZ conversion, this car was here first. And we've been waiting on parts for this car. We've been waiting on our iWire merge date, and that is now coming up. So I need to get the bulkhead harness out of this Impreza L, send it to iWire because we're one of the last ones on their last list who are doing a merge for this car. So bulkhead harness has got to come out. And I figured while the car is in the shop, we might as well get some other progress done on it, like getting in our engine, our transmission, our hubs, our coilovers, and a lot of other stuff to go on this car. So we're essentially going to be building an R-STI in about 2-3 days. Now we are obviously not going full bananas on this car like we are on the one up there. This one's going to be a fairly basic R-STI swap. For the engine, we have an IAG 550 with some built B25 cylinder heads. Everything on this engine is brand new and fresh, so this thing should last them a long time. It's a little bit dusty right now, so I got to clean off the dust and whatnot on it, but it's going to be living in here. I've already got the engine and the transmission out of this car, so doing this swap right now shouldn't be too bad. We've got a 2005 STI 6-speed over here. On this rack, we've got things like the steering column, the ECU, the coilovers, the turbo, a whole bunch of other stuff, axles, radiator. I've got a ton of stuff sitting for this car. Subframes that we got to swap over. On the inside of the car, we have the drive shaft and some other stuff floating around in here as well. Now this Impreza L is taking my old 2.5 RS bumper off of this car, as well as a different front bumper. I think it's a 2.5 RS front bumper that's going on this as well. So what we're going to start with so far, I've got my buddy Kyle and Jen coming over. They do a lot of rally racing, and when we have parts that aren't being used, they typically get donated to them as spares for their rally stuff. So let's start off by getting everything off of the car that we're not going to be using. Bumpers, wheels, suspension, subframes, a whole bunch of other stuff. And once we get most of that off, then we'll start putting a lot of our new stuff on. First thing I want to do is start by removing everything that we're not going to be reusing, like the front bumper, the wheels, the hubs, the rotors. Anything that is not being reused is going into the giveaway pile, so that way I can start focusing on just getting the new things on. When it comes to swapping these from 5x100 or WRX or Impreza to STI swapping, look at the pile of parts you have, be like, this needs to go, that needs to go, this needs to go, and it kind of sets yourself up for a game plan of the areas that you need to tackle first. We have a lot of the RS stuff, or not even RS, a lot of the Impreza stuff out right now. The struts, the front subframe, this is actually a turbo subframe. So if you're doing this swap, you do need a turbo subframe because it does have the cutout for the up pipe. That's really the only reason that you're swapping the front subframe. Knuckles are out. We did leave the front lower control arms because they still work and we don't have another set. So the steel factory control arms work just fine. Over here on our pile, we've got a lot of stuff. Front wheels, front subframe, steering rack, which I need that temporarily until we put the STI one in. Front coilovers, rotors, knuckles, brakes, a spare intake that's not being used. This front bumper that's not being used because we do have an RS one that is going on this car. So right now it's a lot of the stripped down stuff. My buddy Kyle is coming over. Kyle and Jen, I mentioned them earlier. They're gonna help me toss in this STI 6-speed. Way easier to have a second person or even a third person helping you do this when you can. So it'll make it a lot easier going in. Once this is in, we're actually gonna jump straight to getting the engine in. If I can get this stuff out of the way and into the car, that's the ideal goal. Now, before the engine goes in, I'm gonna clean up this engine bay a little bit, so don't stress that. Then we can actually start knocking out some other stuff. Front suspension, front knuckles, front axles, all that stuff can go on, and the front of this thing can be converted to STI. I am a little worried about the rear because I didn't think this through, and I'm talking about the Jesus bolts back here. I don't think I have another Jesus bolt going through here. And if you don't know what I mean by Jesus bolt, it's the really long bolt that runs through the trailing arms and the knuckle. 99% of the time they don't come out. I have had to cut them out. I had to cut them out on this car and replace them with a brand new one right there. This side, I think I actually was able to get out somehow. So it's really hit or miss on if you're gonna be able to get them out. Now I still need this car to roll for the meantime, so we may have to leave the rear end 5x100. Words cannot express how grateful I am of Kyle and Jen to help me put in that 6-speed. If you've ever picked up an STI 6-speed, you'll know just how heavy they are. I have put these in by myself and it's such a pain in the butt, so huge shout out to them. When it came to putting the engine in, with a lot of the older Subarus like GCs and GDs, sometimes you can't put the engine in with the exhaust manifold on because it's just too tight. So I did have to pull that off. Outside of that, it went in relatively easily, no issues at all. We have the engine and transmission in this thing. I started cleaning it up a little bit on this side. Cleans up pretty well. Over here, there's a good amount of rust though, so what we might, I don't know what we're gonna do with that quite yet. We'll figure something out. But engine and trans in, it's so nice to have these in this car now and not sitting in the shop anymore, because these have been sitting around for quite some time. So now that we've got our EJ and our 6-speed in there, we can start getting a lot of the front suspension and axles back in. I just placed an order for some ball joints for the front of this thing because I can't put the front knuckles in because they didn't come with any ball joints, which is not a big deal. O'Reilly's had some, so I'm about to go pick those up, and then we'll come back tomorrow, get the front knuckles, front hubs, front coilovers, the entire front end of this assembled, so that way we can actually put this thing back on the ground and make it a roller again. We'll toss on the other bumper and we'll start getting a lot of the engine stuff in here, which I am hyped to see this car come together as well. I think once it comes back from paint, this car is going to look a million times better, because right now, I'm not going to lie, this car does look pretty bad. There's a lot of discoloration. It looks like somebody peed all over the car. This is kind of interesting. They painted this gold. I don't know why. With the new ball joints, that means I can actually get in the front suspension to turn this car back into a roller again, because without the ball joints, obviously I can't put the car back on the ground. So got the ball joints into the new hubs, got the hubs in, suspension, coilovers, axles, it's ready to roll. With our new ball joints, we now have the 5x114 hubs and rotors. This is all going to get wire wheeled off to clean it up. Coilovers are in. I am waiting on GM6 GC8 top hats to correct the alignment on that, so once those come we can easily just swap that out. But technically at this point it is a roller. I do need to put the stock steering rack back in for the time being, just so that way we can actually turn this thing. But I'm going to shift my focus a little bit to getting the bulkhead harness, all of the wiring out of here, so that way we can ship it all down to iWire, because that's my main focus right now. So I'm gonna start in the engine bay, get everything kind of worked back to this wheel well here, and then we're gonna have to jump inside the car in a little bit after we put wheels on this, so that way we can actually set the car down and start ripping out the interior to get the bulkhead harness out from the inside. So let's start stripping the engine bay down a little bit more. I might toss some more stuff in here just to kind of clear off some racks, get some more stuff installed. We're gonna be a little bit all over the place with this car. Over the years, you guys have probably seen me pull out a handful of dashes, and it does seem very complex and annoying to do, and it's not necessarily complex. The way that I go about tackling getting dashes out is just look around for any screw you can see and take it out. There's going to be hidden screws. Normally there's two up underneath of the front cowl on the inner dash, right under the windshield. Those are always going to be the most pain in the butt ones to get. Outside of that, just look for screws, pull out any of them you can find, give the dash a little wiggle, go back and test again. Eventually it'll come out. So we have the dash out. That actually wasn't too bad to get out. It was a little bit annoying, but most of the time getting any dash out is annoying. So now I gotta pull a dash bar, pull a heater core, the blower fan, get down to that bulkhead harness and start removing that from the car, because that is what we need to send to the guys at iWire, so that way they can do the merge harness for us. So they're gonna take, I believe it's like an 05 STI, and merge it with this Impreza L to make a harness that'll work for a turbo engine and turbo ECU, OBD2, all of that stuff. So it'll make this car very easy. On our car that we're doing, we are not doing that. We are building our own harness, so it'll be a lot easier with this car. It'll be very plug and play. So I'm gonna jump back in here, get this dash bar out, get the steering column out of the way, move the blower fan, all that stuff. I'm gonna put it back after I get the bulkhead harness out, so that way it can all stay there. Plus I need a steering column in this car to be able to move it. So back in here, pull out this harness, and we should be well on our way. We have everything pulled out. The bulkhead harness is out, dash out. A lot of that stuff's gonna go back in temporarily, which shouldn't be bad, but the bulkhead came out relatively easily, especially for an older car, and I didn't break any interior panels at all, which is impressive. Got dash, glove box, dash bar, heater core. The heater core is the only thing that broke, and that was the old plastic portion of the heater core that went to the engine. So thankfully Subaru still does sell the heater core that goes inside of this assembly, so we can replace that later. We've got the entire bulkhead harness here. I just left the ECU attached right now, the stock ECU. So from my understanding, this is all I need to send to iWire. If they need me to send any of the other harnesses, I can definitely pull them. But as you guys see, bulkhead, nothing there anymore. So that's gonna get set aside. Right now we're gonna toss the AC condenser, the heater core temporarily back in, the dash bar back in temporarily, so that way I can bolt up the steering column, so I can at least push this thing around so it's not just sitting right here for months. So with the dash back in, the dash bar in, all that stuff, the steering linkage hooked up, we are gonna get this thing pushed back into my overflow spot on the other side of the facility, where it's gonna sit until we get the harness merged back from iWire. So let me get this thing pushed over there. It's gonna be a little bit interesting because right now the steering wheel is not hooked up to the steering rack. So I'm gonna have to steer it from the steering rack. No, I don't quite know how I'm gonna do this yet, but we'll get it figured out. I'm just glad that we got the harness out, we got the engine in, we got the transmission in, we got the front BBS wheels on, we got the axles in, so everything on the front end STI swap wise is pretty much done. The engine obviously needs a couple little more things, actually a handful of more things here and there, but there's some stuff I don't want to put on this engine and then put it in storage. I'd rather put it on when we go to install it permanently. So for now, this will be fine. This is gonna be in my other indoor unit where it's gonna be sitting until that merge harness comes back. So let me get this thing out of here real quick. I will say that does look real good, especially with the STI BBS wheels up here. It's funny, we have 5x114 in the front and 5x100 in the back. It's quite odd. Let me get this thing out. Got that other R-STI pushed out into my overflow spot. Ours is back on the ground. We are gonna be jumping back on this tomorrow to start prepping the body for primer, so that way we can get this thing painted, hopefully this week, because I really wanna let that paint cure up for as long as we can, especially on the body. My main goal right now is get the whole body just painted World Rally Blue. It's gonna be incremental. Like obviously we're gonna start with the physical body of the car, then we'll probably do the hood, the front fenders, the side skirts, the rear bumper, front bumper, all that stuff. So we have a ways to go on our own. You guys will be seeing more on that white Impreza L that we were just working on when the harness comes back. We still have a lot to do on that thing, but I'm glad to be able to get that engine in it, the transmission in it, the harness pulled, and some other little stuff done here and there on that car. So with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. Hyped to be jumping back on ours. It was nice to take a break from it for a day to focus on something else where I'm not just doing body work every single day, especially after all the sanding and molding we did on this car a couple days ago. It was nice to have a little breather. So with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you like the video, I'll put in one of these, or if you like the video, go ahead, hit the like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver sign, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.